Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special presentation of Mainframe Comic Con. It is our Black Friday, nay, Bat Friday, DC spectacular. Over the next, I'd say, about 5+ hours, we're going to be bringing you live interviews from the top creators over at DC Comics. We are going to discuss upcoming projects, past projects, find out what's in store for 2021. And speaking of stores, I'm the captain of the segue. Since this is Black Friday, the busiest shopping day of the year, head on over to mainframecomiccon.com, where you're going to find exclusive signed merchandise. Many of tonight's guests are going to be signing things for your purchase over at mainframecomiccon.com. We've got comics for sale, CGC grading, limited edition prints, all signed by today's guests. So if you are all ready, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. Without further ado, joining me for the next hour and pretty much for the duration of the evening here on Bat Black Friday. You know him as the host of the widely popular Word Balloon podcast, a man who knows just about everyone in the business as a friend. RMC for the evening, Mr. John Siuntres. John, are you ready?
Oh, absolutely, man. Good to see you, Chuck. And hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us in what's going to be a multiple-hour extravaganza. And if you love Batman, you're at the right place because we have so many fantastic creators that are going to be joining us, talking about their work over the years on Batman and the whole Bat family. And this hour is going to be great because some people couldn't join us. It's Black Friday and, holiday weekend. Some people, it's a bad time zone for them. So I did a bunch of pre-recorded interviews with a lot of great creators that in some cases are collaborators of the people that we'll have on live later tonight. And also, just again, we're great representatives of Bat lore and the legend of the Bat, all represented by our guests. In fact, again, as Chuck said, go to mainframecomiccon.com, go to our store because there are some incredible prints, comic books with remarks, graded slab comic books, autographed comic books. You can actually go and send your merch to some of these people.
Take a look at some of these, John. This is actually some of the prints you can get from Clayman. He is the guy. We're gonna do a whole Batman Catwoman panel here later on tonight. But these are just some of the 11x17 prints you can get from Mr. Clayman. These are the ones from David Finch. This is his on the far left. That's his variant cover for the new Batman Catwoman. That is, of course, the iconic cover for, I believe it was Batman 700.
That's right.
And so these are all going to be, they're all available on our store, and they're going to come signed with certificate of authenticity. These are amazing from Mr. Fabic, the 3 Joker 11x7 prints, autographed, certified, all available. These things are just flying off the shelves. So please, if you're watching this, head on over to mainframecomiccon.com. If you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, head over to the website and get your hands on these while they last. Because it is Black Friday after all. Get a little bit of holiday shopping done, while you're enjoying all these. These ones are phenomenal. These are Mitch Jared's. They're all black and white. The one on the right is the Batman Swamp Thing. An absolute gorgeous piece of grayscale art.
Absolutely, and a great story as well. And this is, of course, Mirka Adolfo, who just did the Punchline one-shot with James Tynion. And these are pages from the one-shot, but also she's selling those as prints. And in fact, we'll have some words from her on this hour as well. So, Clayman, of course.
Yeah, the CGC Signature Series is really cool. You can actually take your own personal comic books. There's instructions on the shopping page on how to do it. You can actually mail in your books, get them signed, get them slabbed if you want to. David Finch is even doing remark sketches. I mean, holy crap.
Gorgeous remarks. Unbelievable.
Yeah, the Batman
worth the price, man.
Because there's not a con going on. Normally, you could go to a con and you could bring your books and get them signed. You can't really do that this time. Now you can, like those Batman Catwoman that just showed up, that's autographed by Finch, Tom King, and Clayman. With a potential sketch on the cover. I mean, oh my God. You just imagine seeing that sitting up there on your shelf. John, you had such a busy week. Like you said earlier, you did so many, 2 weeks, man. You did so many interviews. Everybody, when the people at DC, we were in discussion about doing this con, everybody wanted to do it. But since it is a holiday weekend, as you said, people just couldn't quite commit to the live thing because it is Thanksgiving and everybody's feeling very bloated today. So let's go ahead and dive into some of these amazing interviews that you did. I know you got
absolutely, man. You showed the 3 Jason Fabic 3 Jokers covers that are $45 each. If you want to get all 3, it's only $115. There they are. And what an amazing story that started with the first issue. Well, of Rebirth. Prior to that, there was a Justice League story where Batman is sitting in Mertron's chair, one of the new gods, where you become all seeing and all knowing, and he has this shocked look on his face and says, "That can't be possible." And then we find out in that first issue of Rebirth, as Batman's sitting in the Batcave, has all the monitors on, and there's three Jokers, and they all suddenly look different and stuff. And we've been waiting for the story for years. And Geoff and Jason Fabok delivered with the Three Jokers series that just wrapped up about a month ago or so. And here's Geoff Johns now talking about the background of that story with me. Switching gears, that is another great stroke of Rebirth, and I don't think anyone saw it coming, was the idea that the Joker wasn't just one guy. And I love it because it explains, and Gary Frank explored it when Batman's looking at the monitors and we see the different representations of Joker over the years, the classic, Bronze Age Joker, Killing Joke Joker, and then also what Scott Snyder and company did with their version of the Joker. And it's like, oh God, they are different. And it's like, you really thought it was an artistic choice, but then tell me about coming up with this concept that, no, it's three different guys.
Oh. I mean, Jay Fabok and I, Jay's another amazing, brilliant artist, and he's obviously illustrating Three Jokers. We worked on Justice League together. Just such a talented, passionate collaborator, and I'm so grateful that we're working together on this project. But when we were working on Justice League, originally we came up with this idea. Like I just threw the idea out because I thought about the different, it's not just about the different eras of the Joker, but about the different perceptions of the Joker. Because I think, he can mean different things. The three people I think he's hurt the most in the DC universe, and that's Bruce Wayne, Barbara Gordon, and Jason Todd. And the story itself is really about wounds and healing from those wounds, physically and emotionally, and scars that are left, physical and emotional scars, and how these three people have dealt with it differently and have felt like the Joker's a different kind of presence in all their lives. They'd never done a story that focused on the pain that the Joker inflicted that was shared between them, where it's specifically about, specifically to Bruce, Barbara, and Jason, because they've all gone through a lot, but Barbara's life and Jason's life in particular took hard left and right turns, and they recovered differently. They became different types of people. And I feel like Barbara healed the right way emotionally and Jason the wrong. And then physically, they both have their challenges too. And Bruce is a huge part of this because he's faced Joker since the beginning. But that idea of three came from the three perspectives of these characters, of someone that has encountered the Joker since Batman #1 and seen the different ways the Joker behaves, and then somebody who was shot and paralyzed by the Joker and has a perspective on what the Joker is, and somebody that was essentially murdered, by the Joker and has a perspective on what the Joker is in that. I feel like exploring that territory emotionally and then tying it into the mystery of the Joker, of who the Joker is and where he comes from, and is there more than one, and what would that mean, and why would that be? It's all one big story. And originally when Jay and I talked about doing this story, there have been so many amazing Joker stories in comic books, so many, from obviously The Killing Joke and Death in the Family, and what Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo did. Like, there's great Joker stories. Like, there's some classics that are on everyone's shelf, and we wanted to come at it. If we were going to do a Batman Joker story, we really wanted to try and come at it from a different angle and look at the Joker in a different way and explore the characters in a different way and live with the characters, and see another side to what the Joker has done, who the Joker is, what the Joker is, not strictly in a continuity sense, but just in an emotional sense.
That's great, John.
Powerful stuff, man. Well, that's Geoff Johns. It's when you think about it, Chuck, The Joker's literally been around for 80 years. This is the 80th anniversary of Batman #1.
Almost as long as Word Balloon.
You're not wrong. And really, it's such a challenge to do something new that hasn't already been done. I remember when Tom King was coming on Batman, and following Scott, and Scott had done such a great job, and taken the Joker and other characters in different spins. And the same thing goes with James Tynion right now. And it's like, God, what can you do that hasn't already been done in these last 80 years? And you got to hand it to these guys. They always find something new to say about the classic characters. And then, of course, they add to the continuity as well with new villains and new characters.
Yeah, I remember when they first teased that there were multiple Jokers. Now, it wasn't a widely beloved concept amongst the DC fans, but they really rallied themselves. And now it seems like they're going for it, and they're doing a phenomenal job with it. Now the fans love it.
And it was a great story.
You got to show us. You can't just tell us, but once you show it to us and let us read it and let us see the amazing art, then they'll get into it.
I was intrigued from Rebirth #1, and it's interesting. Speaking of Joker, we should mention again that Jason Fabok, you can get those great covers from the 3 Jokers as individual prints, or you can get all 3. And all you have to do is go to the store at mainframecomiccon.com. And also, by the way, it's not just being sold tonight. The sale will continue through December 4th.
Correct.
So we want everyone to know that it's you're thinking about your Christmas shopping list and your favorite Batman fan in your life. Well, this would be a great opportunity to pick up some cool prints, not only from Jason but our other guests.
Black Friday lives on at Mainframe, so I'm going to go ahead and keep playing my my inner David Letterman. And so I understand you brought another clip, John.
Speaking of the Joker, I had a great talk with Alex Ross last Friday. I've just released the audio on the Word Balloon podcast feed, but the video is coming. But here's a highlight of that. And it starts off with Alex talking about his Batman Black and White story that he did with Paul Dini called Case Study. And it's very interesting because there are definitely ties from that story to, I would say, the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. And so we start off talking about the Black and White story, but we do go into Alex's thoughts on the movie as well. So here's Alex Ross on the Joker.
Something that, since you're reflecting upon the Batman Black and White story, one thing that comes up that I haven't necessarily talked about in any public forum is it was our reaction to the kind of characterization of the Joker as who he really was, who he could have likely have been, and Paul putting out his version, which he had originally intended for an episode of the Batman animated series. And when he explained the story to me, I thought, oh my God, we should do that. And I had just been given the opportunity to do a story for Batman Black and White. So we put out our kind of rebuke of the idea of him actually being a crazy guy who had lost his mind, but he was always, in fact, this criminal who had a certain leaning that was already, he was a bad egg. And that the whole nuts angle was just something that kind of kept him from going to the electric chair. So in our own way, that was a rejection of the version that was classically accepted about who the Joker was, but also the Alan Moore Killing Joke version, where he made him this hapless, failed comedian who then, has one really bad day and all that stuff. As I assume most people listening to this probably, they know their Killing Joke. And the thing is, I love that series, or I love that one shot in terms of the art of it and the striking nature of how bold and violent the story was. But I ultimately hated what it did to continuity, and I hated the sort of the general idea of that character being nuts. So come to today, where now we've got an Oscar-winning film where the director and actor really invested themselves in the idea of, no, this guy's supposed to be crazy, and let's get into that idea and see how possible that is, that he should be this unbalanced mind. And they put a lot of thought and development into it. That's the first time it's sort of changing my mind about this character. So I've already put out one version of what I thought seems reasonable. And then they've done another version that I could go, oh, well, you made a very good point.
I get it. And also, yeah, to me, it almost seemed like he was medicated and maybe he shouldn't have been medicated. And that's why he was struggling. And then when he took it off the medication, he did become more psychotic, or not psychotic, but, I forget the right psychological term, but essentially that, like, just amoral. And that, no,
Yeah.
he's very much in control of who he is. He just doesn't have that compassion gene. And, it's like, this is what we get. I mean, and it's funny because at first when I watched it, and I wonder if did you have that feeling right away coming out of the theater? Because the movie, like a fungus, grew on me. And it kind of invaded my mind. And I really was like, I must like this movie more than I realized because I'm still thinking about it. And that's great art.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I was really impressed with the thought and all the performance within it. I never expected I'd see a movie where just looking at an actor's face, I was seeing the Joker within that form. Because up until this point, aside from getting, a middle-aged Jack Nicholson to play the part back in '89, or which we always thought that Jack should play this part, but we didn't necessarily get the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest Jack. You then later have a series of handsome men playing the part. Where, I mean, and they did great work, but it's the fact of getting a guy who could basically contort himself and lose the amount of weight to create that body shape. And then on screen, his features, I never would have thought, I mean, the guy who was the bad king in Gladiator, that he would make such an excellent Joker without makeup, that you could see that face in him, not smiling. Just, it was an amazing feat.
Wow. That's phenomenal. I've never actually heard Alex Ross in an interview before. So I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying every second of this, John.
Well, in a couple, like I said, over the weekend, I'll be posting the full 90-minute interview I did with Alex. And I love talking to him because you can tell from the text in collections like the Kingdom Come hardcover and all of his stuff, his Marvel stuff. He's in the midst of a new spin on the original Marvel series that he did with Kurt Busiek. And now instead it's an anthology. But his thoughts, he'll do those, the back matter where he'll have sketches and process stuff. And just his thoughts on the characters. That's why he's so great, man. I mean, he really does think about these things beyond just putting it on the page, and really, really thinks about character and emotions behind the faces. And I think it comes through in his work. And, it was fun hearing him, and I agree with him. Isn't it interesting that usually the inclination is to have pretty people play the Joker? Literally, even Cesar Romero, who back in his prime was a Latin lover actor and stuff. So, and to go to Joaquin Phoenix and, like he said, see that face underneath the makeup, and that it was that crazy Joker face. So, and I don't know, what did you think of the Joker movie, John?
I thought it was phenomenal. And again, going back to the three Jokers, when they announced Joaquin Phoenix was going to be the Joker, again, not widely beloved decision and announcement in the fandom community, but again, just show it to us. I was blown away by Joker. I've seen it so many times. I walked out of the theater and I felt dirty, and I want to walk out of a theater and feel dirty. I haven't felt that dirty walking out of a movie since Dances with Wolves.
Wayne is right, one of our commenters, when he said 2020 has just been one really bad day, and I quite agree with that. Absolutely. It was like I said. At first, I'm so tied to the continuity of the comics that literally I was watching, going, "Well, that's not right." But then after I left the movie, it really sat with me, and really, I was thinking about it for days, and I'm like, "That's the sign of a great movie if you're still thinking about it, whether art's supposed to move you. And even if it moves you in a negative way, it does what it's supposed to do." So we've got more of Alex talking about, and again, Alex is just in the, 30 years that he's been in the comic business, has had so many opportunities to draw Batman and the Bat universe and stuff. So we talk about another great black and white image, and you'll see it right away. And then we go into his love of Adam West and the 66 continuity, which has been represented in so many comics, covers and interiors. And Alex always does an amazing job. So here's Alex talking first about Batman as a character and the endurance, that the things he has to endure to be Batman. And then it spins into an Adam West hunk. I want to back to Batman for a second. My favorite image of yours that you've done of Batman is that great Bruce Wayne looking in the mirror, looking in the mirror shot where we see his back and we see all those scars, and every fight that Batman probably ever had in his 80-year career is reflected in that back and everything. And it just is that, like, it hurts to be Batman, and I kind of think that's really amazing.
Well, that was something that I was taking from an inspiration in a specific comic, from something that was described but not shown. So the writer had put the reference in there where Catwoman is fixing up a recent wound, and as Batman's got his shirt off, but not his mask, his shirt is off, and she says it looks like a map of scar tissue. And that creates a powerful impression in your young mind where you think, like, God, I'd like to see what that looks like. So 20 some years later, I'm getting to create that as an image because, you know, it's always stuck with me, is like, yeah, there's a toll to be taken. In fact, the entire nature of how I approached the aging Bruce Wayne in Kingdom Come is with the idea that he's barely holding it together, because you can't, that whole adage about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is not true. You know, what doesn't kill you may make you a lot weaker and hobble you completely. So, you know, I wanted to pay some close attention to the fact that the Batman, who might have even been the same Batman from Frank Miller's Dark Knight, this is how he's going to wind up after this much trauma to his body. You know, he's going to have like an exoskeleton just to move around.
Absolutely. No, it was amazing. And then even the reveal at the end that he does put on armor of sorts and is back in action despite being in that condition was really, I think, an exciting thing to look at as well in Kingdom Come. Truly the trajectory of Batman is reflected by your art is always really great to see. And it's again, the various versions of Batman, and you're very comfortable in any incarnation of Batman. I mean, again, looking at even the Challenge of the Superheroes image that you showed me with them, with, you know, and then the roast, and that is slightly different than the Batman 66 version and everything, but they're great. And man, when you did those covers for the Green Hornet crossover, and you know, those were terrific too.
Yeah,
really
I got a good number of opportunities to illustrate Adam West Batman in recent years. It's weird that it took as long as it did for, you know, you think about it, like these guys were out there doing conventions for, I don't know, 30 plus years before they could really cash in upon this connection. And it would wound up being a fluke that we actually got this deal made between Fox and Warner Brothers. It's just, you know, the whole story of how that finally came together is somewhat heartbreaking, because you think, like, there's all this time lost where they could have made merchandise based upon the show, you know, because now you have the issue of there's men in our age group that are the last generation who got the show in reruns before there's sort of a next wave of, you know, young people today won't watch the show the same way because they have other options. We had no other options in the 70s growing up, or 80s, that was like this show. It was a one of a kind. They never spent that kind of money making an adaptation of a comic thing to film or television until the 90s. And then everybody's grown up since then. They've got a million different other things they could have watched. And any kid that's growing up now in this new century, you know, we become the last connection to the original.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Have you noticed, did you see that they made a sideshow? I believe it was a sideshow collectible of the statue of that Alex Ross, a piece of art where Batman's, the cowl's right next to him, and it's just his back, and he's looking at it. It's an absolute beautiful, beautiful statue.
Again, the emotion that he's able to inject in his art is really incredible. And also, I really appreciate the dignity that he gave to 66 Batman, because he's right. What he said at the end there is true. And it's okay, because that show, it was made, any TV show in the 60s, show it to a kid, it moves like a snail. I mean, they're so slow. And again, it was campy, playing into parody. well, we want a serious Batman, and I think young people want a serious Batman. And also, they, as he said, they had the example of not only the Tim Burton movie from '89, but the Batman animated series. Obviously, several generations have grown up on that. In fact, I don't know if when you were watching any of DC's Fandom back in the summer, they had a bit where they showed a bunch of clips from Batman '66. And they totally made fun of it. And that's okay. It's a comedy.
Yeah.
But again, when we were little kids watching it, it was high drama. I mean, we didn't know that we were, being teased and that, the very serious Wells citizens, we didn't know that was all an act and everything. We thought he was being serious.
That's because they have such top tier actors, like you said before. I mean, phenomenal actors playing a campy Batman.
And thank God Adam West got to see a little bit of, I'm sure, a re-energy to him being Batman with this merchandise. And thank God they were able to fix all the rights issues, because Fox had made the television show and it was DC before it was owned by Warner Brothers. So now Warner Brothers owns the IP, but Fox owned the show for years. And they made literally like a baseball trade of IPs and intellectual properties to kind of get all the rights in one place. So thank God. And again, I'm really glad that Wes had a great final couple of years and really got to enjoy, being Batman again.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and cue up your next clip. Before we do, just a reminder, guys, if you are watching this on YouTube or Facebook, we've got an entire night of amazing Batman panels going on every single hour, all the way up until midnight. So please head on over to the website and check out just some of the amazing panels we've got lined up, all live. So get your questions into the chat room. We'll put them up on the screen. We'll ask all these amazing DC creators your questions. So stick with us all night long at mainframecomiccon.com. John, what other kind of clips did you put together for us this week?
Well, another thing we're selling over at mainframecomiccon.com are prints by Mirka Adolfo, who just did a great one-shot about Punchline and gave us the backstory of Punchline. James Tynan, wrote the story. And I had the opportunity. Mirka is Italian. And we spoke to her in Italy, and she was sketching while she spoke to us. And I'm always impressed, and this may sound condescending, I don't mean it to, truly always impressed by the people from other countries that are able to discuss in complex detail their thoughts on something in a second language. And Mirka was able to do that. So here's Mirka Adolfo. First talking about the character of Punchline, what she likes about it, and then her thoughts on Batman. I enjoyed your Punchline issue.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I know you're selling prints for the event from the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. On three prints in total, all from the pages from the issue.
That's excellent. Tell me about what is it about Punchline that fascinates you?
Punchline is a totally crazy character. I'm a very Harley Quinn fan, but I started to understand why she's so loved. She's very strong. She's a evil villain, but she's also very interesting as character itself. Different, not as Harley Quinn. She's more confident with the Joker. Is more maybe is not confident the word in English. Sorry, I don't speak very well.
No, you're doing fine.
More,
go on.
Thanks. She's Joker doesn't win on her. She's a villain, has him, and she can be a standalone villain if she wants.
That's great. Yes. Continue.
And also in the comic, there are some scenes where she's more mad than the Joker itself sometimes. So she is very, very, very more modern take on a villain, on a female villain, in my opinion. More independent.
As I spoke to James about the character, I like how she's informed by social media.
Well, also for this reason, she's very modern character. Today, all young, she's very young also.
Yes.
Everybody are connected today. So
sure.
I think especially in the comic, we see a young character that I don't say the name because I don't want to make spoilers, but he is very influenced from Punchline thanks to the internet. So this is because internet today is so important for communication, and it's a nice touch to add to Punchline, because for her is very important. She used internet for her message about what she thinks about the society, about the Joker, about stuff. She's against Batman and stuff like that. And so fragile minds can be influenced by her, and not in a good way, obviously, because she's bad.
Right. Absolutely. Tell me about, as you get the opportunity to draw Batman, what are your thoughts of Batman and how you draw him? What are your thoughts of the character?
Well, I always loved Batman. He's a very interesting character, in my opinion. I didn't read many comics, but I really enjoyed the work of Tom King and James Tynion, of course. And I think it's really a good, I don't know how to say in English, it's a very good example.
Yes.
Because he's rich, he has power, but he helps who needs to be helped. He's like he's a great hero, also without superpowers. He can have his gorgeous life with power and money, but he used that to help others. And I think Batman for this is unique in the comics today.
Wow, she's absolutely lovely. She's tons of fun. Have you had a chance to pick up the new Punchline one shot?
Oh yeah, no, it's a great story, and Punchline is great. And as she said, a contrast to Harley, where you could mistake her for being another sycophant to Joker, but actually no. And she proves it right away as soon as James debuted her, how tough she is. And yeah, I mean, she's amazing, and it's great. I agree with Jason. She's very nice. Mirka is, and very sweet, and she's done a lot of work for DC. Plus, she makes her own comics as well that she sells through Image. And no, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of her regarding the DC universe in 2021.
The prints we have on sale for her at mainframecomiccon.com at Black Friday are so cool, all autographed. But I was walking by Chicago Comics the other day, and their book of the week was Mirka's Punchline.
It's not surprised, man. No, it's her work also on Harley Quinn and Wonder Woman. So many great comics. As she did a story for the current death metal, event that Snyder's doing, and she's great. And yeah, I'll be presenting the audio of the full audio of that on Word Balloon next week. But yeah, it was a terrific conversation. And again, we're selling these amazing prints directly from the pages of Punchline, that great one shot. So check them out at mainframecomiccon.com. There they are.
Did you get to keep that sketch she was working on? Is that
no,
mailed
she
to the Word
finishes
Balloon
it.
studio?
She did finish it by the end. It's funny, the image on the left, or on the right rather, if you put that back up for a second, I wanted to point out, it's kind of, as she said, it's an homage to that great Alex Ross painting of Harley and the Joker dancing. And this is kind of their Punchline twist on that iconic scene, which I think is fantastic. And again, as Mirka said, Punchline's her own woman, and is absolutely fierce and not a patsy for the Joker, which makes her that much more interesting. So pretty cool stuff, man.
She's an awesome character. One other thing about Punchline before we move on to your next, because I know, man, you interviewed so many people this week, and we want to get all the clips in. Also available on our store is Punchline. We got a variant cover. We don't have a photo of it, but head on over to mainframecomiccon.com and check that out for sure. So, John, what else you got for us, man?
Well, why don't we stick with the women in the Bat universe and talk a bit with J.H. Williams III, the co-creator of Batwoman. I mean, they had the design at DC already set, but we wanted to talk to James because I think that that comic was so formative in Kate Kane's character and really setting her up. Of course, now a successful TV show. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do as they pass the mantle on from Kate Kane to the new character. Everyone's wondering what's going to happen, but let's give James his due, and as he talks about the creation of the Batwoman comic with Greg Rucka. Am I right, Jim? Did she first appear in the 52 Weekly story before your guys' story began?
Yeah, I believe so. I didn't know much about that at the time. And kind of was like, even though I knew Greg was going to acknowledge that stuff, you know, in some ways we kind of hit the ground running on her own title inside Detective Comics with a fresh start, I guess you could say.
I understand, yeah.
Which allowed us to kind of really set the tone of what to expect from the character, not just from Greg's writing, but from a visual standpoint too.
100%, Jim, honestly, and I've got examples of panels that I want to show. I loved how you were framing the action. Here's a great example right here. Who was your colorist on this, Jim? Forgive me for not remembering. Is it Todd Klein?
Todd did the lettering.
He did lettering, yeah.
Yeah, Dave Stewart did the colors.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
Truly, man.
Right? Yeah.
Vivid, beautiful combination, absolutely. And had the design existed before you came on, or did you design Batwoman's look?
There was a basic color scheme chosen, you know, like the red and the black was already kind of chosen by DC. I don't know who thought to use those colors originally. You know, so my answer to that is DC management. I mean, it might have come from somebody else, I don't know.
Okay.
Where my aesthetic came in is, how do I work with what they're showing me and enhance it? So, you know, the boots, the belt, the arm bracers, all that kind of stuff, little flourishes here and there, was my touches. Looking for ways to make the mask seem more plausible, I guess you could say, rather than just a pullover sort of thing. You know, little flourishes like that.
So tell me about, as we saw the example, and I'm going to bring up more examples, but tell me about this framing that you were doing. Now, this is an ad for, I assume, it's the first. It looks like it's an ad for the first trade, but you know, just really interesting choices in terms of how you're setting up these panels.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into words, really. I don't know. It's like, comics should have movement, and they've always been about movement. You know, frame A to B to C. You know, giving you a visual narrative. But I always try to find, if I can, if the scene allows, I try to find ways to enhance the fluidity of that.
Sure.
And sometimes that means taking like some of those examples, you know, taking a shot and breaking down the action across a 2-page spread where you're setting the stage with the whole scene, but then the characters move through the scene, but the background is stationary.
I'm with you.
So it kind of, that adds to the idea of how comics can be moving even though they're not.
I love that you talked about that you showed that one panel, or that one spread, and just how unique it is. It couldn't be further removed from just the 12 panel page that we don't. It's very Eisner-esque.
Yes, you're right, and he mentioned Eisner as one of his influences, and you know, Jim Williams and the JH. It's Jim. He's incredible. He does almost reinvent himself for every project. And Batwoman came at this weird time because, as we said, it was happening during the weekly event 52, and that was weird because Batman was like kind of off stage, and maybe I'm getting my years mixed up, but I know that it was when Dick Grayson was still Batman, kind of like in a previous hour that we had shown recorded, where Jock's story Black Mirror is really Dick Grayson as Batman. And I know that kind of threw a monkey wrench in a lot of people's plans for various stories, including Greg and JH when it came to Batwoman. So there's this great kind of iconic scene of her facing Batman for the first time in her book. And I had to ask Jim, and we've got the clip. I'm always interested in what's in the artist's mind. Are you drawing Bruce Wayne as Batman, or are you drawing Dick Grayson as Batman at the time? And here's what Jim had to say.
When Batwoman debuted, Batman was unstuck in time, and then right, and it was 52, but I know it wasn't. Dick Grayson was Batman. This is around the time of Black Mirror. In fact, I talked to Jock earlier today and about his story, but I remember talking about that with Greg. And were you conscious of, it was a flashback moment when Batman first appears in that first Batwoman arc. But it was kind of, and again, he was in the shadows. And I asked Greg, I'm like, is that Bruce or is that Dick? And he said he felt he left it purposely ambiguous. I don't know if you were consulted and how you took it and how it should look.
I took it as being Bruce. That it was definitely Bruce Wayne, because at the time when Kate Kane was lost and trying to find herself after being unceremoniously let go from the military, in that first encounter where she just took care of a mugger and Batman shows up out of the alley and gives her a hand up, I figured that was long enough ago that it was probably Bruce for me.
Okay.
But when she started in her own title, because that storyline was in Detective Comics. So when we did Batwoman for the New 52 and Batman shows up in there, this is kind of interesting because we started working on that stuff before all the Flashpoint stuff and all the changeover of the universe and all that kind of stuff. So we had written and drawn that scene when Batman shows up in Batwoman's title for the first time as being Bruce Wayne. And so but then everything got changed and we had to figure out through some edits of dialogue and some slight, alterations of art, how to convert that to be Dick Grayson. So that was pretty fascinating.
I love his lighting or lack thereof.
It was a phenomenal interview, guys. You can go find it on the Word Balloon podcast and the Word Balloon YouTube channel. But yeah, I was lucky enough to be directing in the background on that episode. I'm like, oh man, that light, it's just darker and light. But it is what it is. It's a Zoom culture. We're used to seeing that now, I think.
It's fine, but I kept teasing him. Like, it's like you're in the witness protection program.
Right.
Like, what secrets of big tobacco are you keeping with J.H. Williams? We must know.
It was a phenomenal. I know you got another clip with J.H. But I just want to remind everybody, this is just the pre-show. Man, we got a whole night's worth of content coming up. If you're just joining us, head on over to mainframecomiccon.com. Right after this, you're sitting down with a lot of the creators of the new Batman Black and White.
That's right.
After that, we've got Amy Dallin sitting down with David Finch and Jason Fabok talking about art. We've got the big Batman Catwoman with Tom King and Clayman and Mitch Gerards, and we're rounding it out with the big drink and draw without the drawing that we're calling Hanging in the Batcave. It's just going to be a bunch of Batman creators hanging out. So stick with us all night. John, what else you got from JH?
And also, this is all clips, but they are live panels, so you can interact with the creators and ask them questions. If you want to ask us questions with our remaining time, you're certainly welcome to. I'm looking at our timeline here. I don't want to cut us short, so maybe should we switch to Matt Wagner and do with it his clips? If we got time, we've got one more Jim Williams cut about Grant Morrison. But let's go to Matt Wagner, because I always think Matt Wagner is the most overlooked Batman creator in the 80 years that the character's been in existence, because he's both written and drawn some incredible stories. And a couple weeks ago, our buddy Bill Cox had a great art show going on, and he asked myself and Chad from Mainframe to participate, and got a chance to talk to Matt about everything. But one of the things I really wanted to talk to him about was his take on characters, and he really believes that they operate best when they are shown in the time period that they were created. Like Zorro doesn't work in modern day if you put him on a motorcycle. He's got to be Old West. But he even feels that way about modern characters like Superman and Batman, the Shadow. Well, the great thing is he created this character Grendel that everybody knows and loves, one of his amazing original characters. And he did this great crossover with Batman. Hunter Rose was the 1930s New York socialite that likely rubbed elbows with Bruce Wayne back in the 30s. So here is Matt talking about why he thinks Batman works best in the 1930s and compares him to some of these other characters like Grendel.
Here's our next piece.
There you go. So let us talk a bit more about Batman, because again, I love that you took a lot of those early, God, were they 8-page stories, 6-page stories from Detective, from the literally the first handful of Batman stories. And again, you expanded. Batman and the Monster Men certainly comes to mind.
Batman and the Mad Monk too. Yeah.
Yes.
Again, the thing I like about those is, like I said, the superhero tropes aren't very established yet. And so it very much feels like these guys are just kind of making it up as they go along. So it has a certain unfettered freshness to it that, I look at contemporary superhero comics and boy, it's just feels like it's been done before a whole lot, But that stuff, not so. That stuff, again, is drawing most of its inspiration from the pulp magazines that inspired the young creators that were responsible for those early comics. In fact, the very first Batman story in Detective Comics number
27. Yeah, Detective 27.
That is utterly and completely a direct ripoff of a Shadow novella. It's called, I think it's called The Chemical Syndicate.
I was going to say, I know Chemical was definitely in the title. That sounds right.
Beat for beat, the visualizations, all of it. It is straight from, it's a direct ripoff. Okay, inspiration. But again, I like the fact that these guys were taking their inspiration from silent movies, from early pulp magazines, not from other comic books, which is just feels like a retread to me,
So tell me the comparisons of all these great heroes that you've worked on that are flitting around in 1930s New York, if not Gotham society. And let's talk about let's start with Bruce Wayne and Hunter Rose. And I mean, obviously one's a hero, one's a villain, but yeah, just tell me about the men.
Well, the funny thing with that is when I did the Batman Grendel crossover back in the 80s, that was kind of put together by Kamiko, my initial publisher, in coordination with DC. And at that point, we had just finished the Christine Spar storyline. And so my natural inclination was, and that was such a popular run, my natural inclination was to make it a female Grendel to fight Batman. And I turned in a pitch for it, and it was awful. And luckily, my editor at the time, later my sister-in-law, Diana Schutz, had the balls to tell me this is terrible, because it was too convoluted. It was I didn't, in my mind, I couldn't really meld the two worlds, and so Grendel was a fictional character in Batman's world that this woman becomes obsessed with. So it was just too long getting to the good shit, And she said, "Look, Hunter Rose, Bruce Wayne, they're not that different. Just do that." And it was just like boink, the light went off inside my head. And there's certainly variations of a theme, aren't they? The urbane man about town.
Yeah.
But you were saying there about the fact that I've worked on all these characters. I did a whole bunch of this stuff for, in addition to Batman and Grendel, I did a whole bunch of these sort of characters for Dynamite.
Yes.
And so
Shadow run was great. Your Green Hornet run.
The Shadow. I did the Green Hornet year one. I did the Spirit.
Absolutely. Spirit was amazing.
Again,
and Zorro, yes.
All these guys are guys in a hat and a cloak. They bear a certain similarity to each other.
Matt is just the coolest guy. I actually had the opportunity to actually chat with him in a private chat one time and watch him sketch and stuff. And it never ceases to be amaze me that these comic creators, and you forget this because we all haven't been to physical cons in a while, but they're all so approachable. They're all so much fun. And Matt is the perfect example of that. He's just the nicest guy.
You're 100%
and an amazing
right.
artist.
Yeah. He was one of my, I was reading his stuff in the 80s. Never thought I would, I really only started going to Comic Cons in the 2000s. And man, I met him very early on in the podcast run. And he's just always been one of these reliable guys that when we have a great conversation, you know, he's always available. And again, I love his attitude. Like we were talking about, and we've got another clip of him discussing how these characters work better in, like I said, the eras that they're created. And I kind of get what he's saying. And really, his Spirit Run is great. His Shadow, his Green Hornet, and despite them all being kind of urban characters, they are absolutely different. And it's very interesting because in this next clip, Matt talks about his take on Batman and what is really seems to be the current MO for Batman. And they're very different philosophies. So let's take a look at that when he compares Batman and the Shadow and gets into that headspace of, you know, how Batman's depicted today.
I don't adhere to the kind of psychotic approach to each of these characters. Certainly, I would say Ken Allard's a little darker than Bruce.
Sure.
But Bruce isn't, the recent trailer for the new Batman movie just came out, and the guy says to him, what are you? And he says, I am vengeance. And that's not my take on Batman at all. Batman isn't out for vengeance. If he was out for vengeance, he'd be the Punisher.
Okay, sure.
He's out to make sure that what happens to him never happened to anybody else. He's out to ensure that nobody goes to bed without their loved ones that night, still in the world, like he had to do.
Yep.
The modern take on the character, I was talking with Nick Darrington about this recently, and we were both kind of lamenting the fact that there's not much of the Dark Knight detective in the current take on Batman. He's not very detective-y. He's
interesting.
Pretty much a paramilitary character at this point.
Okay.
And Batman's, the reason he dresses up in that costume is not for armor. It's to scare people. It's to scare bad guys. And, if he has to resort to armor, like, truthfully, I think in Batman's mind, if he has to punch the guy, he's doing something wrong. Like the costume didn't work. He didn't get to terrorize the guy, the right way.
Sure.
Similarly, even though the Shadow never really hesitates when it's time to, pull the trigger on somebody, I don't consider him just a laughing maniac. He too is out to kind of expose, pluck the weed of crime, pluck the efforts of bad people. Again, if he was just an executioner, there'd be a trail of bodies all over the place, and that's not really what happens in the stories. When he's backed against the wall, yeah, the guns come out and he lets them have it, but he doesn't just shoot for no reason.
So interesting. He talks about, becoming fear and not Batman shouldn't have to punch people in the face. I mean, it harkens back to the Christian Bale Batman Begins movie when they lean so heavily into the fear aspect of it when Ra's al Ghul, spoiler alert, is kind of telling him, sorry if you haven't seen it by now.
15-year spoiler alert.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good that, the creators actually see that as well.
And he mentioned Nick Darrington, who just came off a year with Bendis doing Batman, and that was a detective story. And it is kind of, and I never really thought about it until Matt said it. And it's like, no, I get what he's saying about the paramilitary operative that Batman has become in modern day. There's nothing wrong with it. Again, compare that to Adam West, compare that to Christian Bale, all the different Michael Keaton, all the different iterations of Batman we've gotten over the years, and even mentioning the Robert Pattinson film when it eventually comes out. We'll see. That's funny. The memes of destruction. I kind of like his comparison. Put it up there. Yes, indeed. Or like Darkwing. I am the terror that flaps in the night. Indeed. Absolutely. My buddy Tad Stone's the great animator, the creator of Darkwing Duck. He's very excited. He is semi-retired, but he's very excited about the new spin on Darkwing Duck that's coming up. So pretty cool stuff, man.
John, I know you. We're gonna begin to start wrapping this up because you've barely begun your long stretch here at Mainframe Bat Friday. What are you most excited about after this pre-show wraps up? You're gonna jump right into the black and white in just a second.
Yeah, we're gonna, and that's another link, everybody. So if you're at Mainframe Comic Con, go to the main page and open up the Batman Black and White link. That'll be starting in about 5 minutes, and we got a great lineup of past and present Batman Black and White creators on there. We got Josh Williamson, we got Jill Thompson, Chip Zdarsky. Who am I forgetting?
Kelly Jones, is that
Kelly Jones, and then Tim Seeley, indeed.
Yep.
And that's going to be great because it's a great mix of callbacks to great black and white stories and also new ones with the new series starting in just a couple weeks. And then we even have Gabe Hardman and Karina Becco talking about their black and white story later in the Hanging in the Batcave segment. But that's going to be great. And then, of course, my God, Tom King, Clayman, Mitch Gerrits talking about Batman, Catwoman, and everything they've been doing with Batman. I mean, this is really the culmination of Tom's run on Batman. So really, I mean, there's no loser in those panels that are coming up. I really look forward to it. And I mean, really, I everyone's going to be sick of me by the end of the night, but
no way, man. This is John Con 2.0, man.
The winter edition. I mean, maybe it is. But yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking about with the Hanging in the Batcave thing. And that's going to be a lot of fun too. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I love the Batman Black and White comics. They were at the back of the Gotham Knight book back in the day. I'm really glad they're bringing the series back. And man, if you look at those collected editions, so many great creative teams did these amazing Batman stories that are no more than 8 pages. Yeah. And we're still able to be so effective. And that's pretty amazing when you consider the multiple chapter stories in today's world that, you could be effective with only 8 pages. Pretty cool.
Well, it's exciting that DC, I know we really got to wrap up, but I mean,
sure.
Last little thought here. It's exciting what DC's doing because I mean, if one good thing has come out of COVID, it's that usually this is sort of like the lull. You get all the big summer events. You go in comics. Summer leading into the summer, the Mays, the Julys, or the big events. DC still has Batman, Catwoman coming out, and they still got the black and white thing coming out. So they're still putting out quality content over at DC before 2020. So they're trying to end 2020 in a real big way over at DC. Well, John, I know you got to run over to panel hall number 2. So guys, definitely go to mainframecomiccon.com and enjoy John Siuntres' awesome panels all night long.
Thanks, Chuck. I'll let you wrap up. And yeah, everybody join me at the top of the hour for the Batman Black and White panel on your various platforms where you're watching this program right now. But go to Mainframe Comic Con and pick up some amazing art at great prices.
Yep,
see you later.
You said it all. Guys, we'll see you all night long here at mainframecomiccon.com. White Whale, play us out, man.